Daniel likes playing green decks. I think every time I've ever played against him, maybe except for once, he was playing a green deck. This is kind of his specialty, I would say. Ancient Tomb to start. Chalice. So a lot of chalices in these last rounds too.
Yeah.
So not to have the same conversation all over again, but does Alan care about this turn 1 chalice?
I think to an extent he does in that his tutors get turned off, but I don't think it's like it's not as punishing as it would be for a cantrip deck, right?
Right. Right.
So it'll cut his bolts, which are important because Daniel is playing a bunch of creatures that would otherwise be susceptible to it. And it will also cut off the crop rotations. So it's not a dead card, but it's not an insurmountable card either, where a turn 1 chalice on the play against a ponder deck could just be lights out.
Right, right. A little bit more resilient than a blue deck would be. Fetching here. So what's the ideal start for a deck like Daniel's with the Dryads and whatnot? What is he trying to do in the early turns?
For the Dryad deck, I mean, he would love to be able to get... I mean, turn 1 Chalice is really where you want to be in any Chalice deck, right? So
right.
Plan A successful. But then the follow-up is, I imagine you're going to want to start getting some amount of acceleration going. So he's playing for Dryad of the Elysian Grove, so that's definitely the backbone of the deck. And that's just going to accelerate you towards your Primeval Titan endgame. So a perfect turn 1, turn 2 start for Daniel, right? Like turn 1 Soul Land into Chalice, followed it up by a Dryad, which is going to give him an exploration. And he plays a Cavern. I assume he's putting it on... Yeah, so he's just saying that he's playing an additional land off of the Dryad. I assume he's going to name Giant here, but we'll see what he writes on this ticket. It's not really going to be relevant. There's no counter magic in this matchup, but yeah, he names Giant, so that'll give him a second green source for a Titan.
Gotcha. Enchantment creature hit on the bingo card, by the way.
This bingo card is entire. What happens if you entirely cross off all of the slots on a bingo card?
It explodes.
Yeah, it's just like the entire stream just ignites.
I just explode, and that's it. Then no more 90s MTG. It's over.
So we got a Tabernacle, which will check 1 mana to keep the Dryad around. I mean, assuming that you have the resources to continue making land drops, a Dryad can pace a Tabernacle pretty well.
All right, swings for 2.
So he's going to pay 2 life, and he's going to Once Upon a Time, and he's thinking about what he's going to get here. So in this position, I would think that either both land and spells are good. It seems like his entire deck is online here.
Once Upon a Time, such a cool card.
It's a really powerful effect, but it's kind of interesting that it's sort of like the green deck. It's like green this year gets like a really nice cantrip, right? A 0 mana cantrip, and then it also gets one of the best counter spells.
Yeah.
Like it's green really showed up in Legacy power level this year. So we got a Dryad that dips down after he took a Scavenging Ooze off the Once Upon a Time, and we head back. So this game's really, really starting to pull away for Daniel here. I mean, he's not necessarily leveraging the multiple land drops off the Dryad, but he is well ahead.
So
with Alan only on a Forest.
Not trying to question Daniel's plays here. I haven't played decks like this, but why drop a Dryad Arbor against a Tabernacle? Doesn't that just do nothing?
It does pretty much do nothing, yeah. It'll have to tap to itself. We'll see if he sees it, though, because he may not if he's playing it. But it looks like he does. He could also tap just the Tomb to... I mean, that's pricey, but it would give him at least... if he needed a certain amount of colors, right? Because if he wanted double green for something like Courser, he might be in the market to be like, okay, I'll pay the Tomb to keep both my creatures around, and now I have double green, so I can play a double green spell like Courser.
Right.
But he ends up paying, and then the Rashadan Port checks that Ancient Tomb. So mana denial plan both ways, but Dryad bringing the beatdowns. We got an 8-turn clock here with that if nothing were to change. Yeah, it's like a Green Ponder, except it digs deeper and costs 100% less mana. Or 100% more mana. It's pretty swingy.
And I know this isn't a competitive tournament with a judge and whatnot. How do you feel about people putting their Dryad Arbors on the creature zone or in the land zone? Do you have any preference one way or the other?
As somebody who played Miracles for a long time and really enjoyed putting lands in front of spells, I think you can put it wherever. I think it's, the onus has to be on the player who's controlling the Dryad Arbor to announce it and make sure that it's clear and that both players understand.
Yeah.
I think that whole argument really came down to the promo Dryad Arbor's artwork, right?
Yeah.
All right. So the Dryad is going to tap to keep the Arbor is going to tap to keep the other Dryad safe, but then it's going to die.
Okay. So
yeah, that was a Dryad that paid for itself and then paid for the Dryad and then died. So it just was essentially a mulligan there. Pretty much just mulliganed and missed a land drop. Not that it didn't seem like he had other lands to put into play, but
I guess.
So we have a Thespian stage and a port. So this Chalice potentially is cutting some crop routes that would otherwise end the game.
That's true.
So that ain't nothing. It's back on Daniel. He drew his card. He's got 4 mana, have access to double green, but his only giant is the Titan. So he might also be stuck on mana. This might actually be just both players are getting paced on their resources to be able to cast any spells here. So far, Alan has not cast a single spell.
He has not. He didn't even use his port that turn. Surprising. There's the Scavenging Ooze we saw like 4 turns ago.
Yeah, the Scooz. I don't imagine the Scooz is going to do too much work. It also doesn't have a green mana up. He decided to tap his Bayou and his Trop, so not that there's really anything that the Scooz could do, but it could become a bigger beater if he wanted to exile the Dryad Arbor, but he tapped both of his green sources for that.
I mean, I guess there's an argument for tapping the Cavern instead of one of the green. If he tries to loan, you can target it or something.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know what that Cavern could do being held up as it might just be a mistap. I don't imagine that's going to be all that relevant, except he could, on board, he could turn his Ooze into a 3/3 by getting rid of the Arbor.
Yeah.
But the Arbor being in the yard isn't, getting rid of it isn't a no cost because he does have what Promenade Excavator. He does have an Excavator in his deck, so having the lands in the yard is a relevant thing for him.
All right, so stage became a Trop. Thank you, Alan, for the visual cues. Players are on point with that. Somebody's thinking here. Alan.
There's a DAC. So copying that Trop was what gave him his blue source.
Yep.
And now we're going to start looting away. So this Tabernacle might be doing a lot of good work because it's been checking both. It's going to cost a couple of mana to check both the Dryad and the Scooz. And Daniel has not presented that he's got lands in his hand because he hasn't been exploring with the Dryad. So a couple of cards hit the bin, Caracas among them. Taiga hits the table.
Taiga. Scavenger Goose pumps itself here. Deck faded not with much to do.
No, I think that it's going to be a life gain spell here. Because bolts are checked by the chalice, so there isn't a way for these creatures to hit the bin out of Alan's deck. So that might have just been a 3-mana Faithless Loot, gain 5. So Daniel's going to take 2 to pay for both of his creatures.
Makes sense. Does he just attack Alan here and put him on a 1-turn clock?
I would think that it's probably the better bet, right? I mean, you're going to let him look 2 cards deeper, which can potentially find depths, but I think you're in the market for just getting him dead and trying to cut draw steps. Granted, if you hit the DAC, that would give him at least an additional draw step, where with DAC he's seeing 2 additional cards. And it looks like that's what he's going to do. So if nothing else were to change, it means that Alan will see 1 less card over the course of those 2 attacks.
Yep.
Right. Did I do that right? Right. He attacks once, and then Dax sees 2 cards. Yeah, so he would see 3 cards deep as opposed to 2 cards deep off of just fogging that attack. So you could get him dead, but you expose yourself. So Daniel decides to play it safe. So we see a Grove. So we don't have, let's say he had Punishing Fire. He doesn't have enough red sources to be able to hit any of the creatures with a double Punishing Fire. So he could turn his Thespian Stage into an additional red source if that is, if he does have a Punishing Fire, because then he can Punishing Fire, bring it back off the Grove, and Punishing Fire again. He has exactly enough mana to do so. And that could check either the Dryad or currently the Ooze. And the Ooze doesn't have enough fodder to grow any larger than that. So,
Riger Tiger, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Is that... oh, that's the port. Okay.
So we got the beatdowns coming in for Daniel. 5 coming across.
Let's get a life total check from the players here.
4.
Yep.
What are life totals, guys?
I'm at 4. He's at 12.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Oh.
Okay. Alan's at 4. I missed an attack at some point. I thought I did, too. I just wasn't sure. So, 1 turn left for Alan. So, Thespian Stage becomes a Taiga. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll give him an additional red source. I'm not sure if he has a Punishing Fire in his hand, but it opens up that line if he does, or if he's thinking about it. He knows in his deck that it's an out for him in this position. He would have to go after. I imagine you have to go after the Skoos first, because otherwise it could eat the Dryad. So he plays a Blast Zone. That Blast Zone is going to have to get a bunch of mana pumped into it if it wants to take out a threat, but I don't know if it's going to be fast enough, because he would have to spend a turn pumping it, and then spend a turn cracking it, and in that interim he would get beat into the face and be dead by those creatures. So that Blast Zone I don't think is a relevant answer at all. No. So he's going to have to pull something else out here.
He also needs more than 1 turn.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he doesn't have the time to have that Blast Zone actually be a relevant card. So we're heading back over to Daniel.
Thinking about Tabernacle now. Putting himself at 10. Oh, so does Blazone have 2 counters on it? No, it has 1.
As one, yeah. He just played it, and I don't think he's going to have enough time to get it to where he needs to be a removal spell. So we got 5 damage coming across. We'll see if this is lethal. I assume it's not because Alan making him do it, so he's got to have something. Yeah, here's the Punishing Fire line that we talked about. So he's got 3 red sources, so he's going to be able to hit 1, Punishing Fire, bring it back off of the Grove, and then that stage, which is currently a Taiga, and hit it again. Oh, he's actually just got double Punishing Fire here, which is pretty solid. He's just checking how he wants to tap his mana, but that's going to take down... It's got to be the Skoos, because this Skoos on the way out is going to be able to eat 1 Punishing Fire.
Yes.
I probably should have mentioned that the line that he needs was actually only a double Punishing Fire line because the Skoos had green mana up. With the trigger on the stack to bring the Punishing Fire back off the growth, he could have eaten it. So
why is he tapping the Cavern right now?
I think he is just tapping it to be green, but that's just a mistake. But I don't. We'll see if he uses all of his mana. We can hop in if he makes that mistake and doesn't realize it.
Yeah. Let me just get on their call.
Damage?
Yeah, so he's not even using that mana, so we'll see if unless he uses double green here for something else. It won't actually be relevant, but
Let's see. Let me hear.
Chris, do you want to talk?
Yeah. How come the Cavern is tapped?
He used it as green mana off of the Dryad with Scavenging Ooze.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
And I paid 2 life for keep the creatures.
Okay.
Yep.
It's on us, right? It's the Dryad?
Yeah, it's the Dryad, yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting
Good catch, chat.
It's getting late. All right. I'll let that move on. So Alan goes to 2.
Yeah, I mean, he now has the board checked because he'll be able to bring back this Punishing Fire and then spend his next turn just paying 5 mana to take out the Dryad. So as it sits, there is onboard answers to checking this Dryad. Do we know how many cards are in Daniel's hand?
We do not. By the way, a Grove just returned a Punishing Fire to hand.
Yeah, you can see Alan's already laid out his mana, so it's just going to be easy fire it, Grove it, fire it again.
Yeah. Alan, can you move all your permanents to the right? The lands on the left. Yes, thank you. That's perfect. All right, tap into here. Once Upon a Time.
So this Once Upon a Time, if he can find, I imagine he's just looking to find a Titan here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the best payoff his deck has, and he has exactly the mana to do it.
Almost.
Oh no, I'm sorry. He only has 5 mana. I'm sorry, I miscounted. He also could bring back something like, because Alan's mana is going to be tied up in recurring and hitting Punishing Fire on every threat. If he is capable of deploying multiple threats, so something like an Excavator bringing back a Dryad, I get that he still has to pay for both those things, and it wouldn't quite get him dead, but just deploying multiple threats in the same turn is still a plan here because Alan is going to have to spend a lot of his resources on just recurring Punishing Fire. So he just picks up a basic forest. So if he has a natural Titan, he now has the mana to cast it. So Daniel's going to pay for the Tabernacle with the Cavern. So unless we see an additional land drop plus that forest, we won't see a Titan this turn. Draws for turn. think Alan was deciding if he was able to port as well, but he's not. So Daniel plays the forest. The other thing that is doable too is once he punishing fires down this Dryad, which he's going to be priced into doing, right? He's going to have to do it. Yep. That blast zone then actually will potentially become relevant against a follow-up threat. So this game could go deep, and Alan could take it. I imagine that his hand has some number of cards that are being checked by that chalice right now. We got 4 mana for another chalice on 2 to lock out the punishing fire. So the punishing fire will still be able at instant speed to take out this Dryad. It's an all-in play, but we are here, so that Dryad will bite the dust momentarily. So now I think we're in the space where Alan is just going to need a natural Dark Depths here.
Yeah,
because he's got the stage, but his outs of now all of his cards outside of his Planeswalkers are pretty much off the table because of those those 2 chalices. So he's at 2, so that fetch is still alive. But Loams are off the table, Sylvan Library is off the table. Yep, he just passes the turn back. So we'll see if Daniel can actually produce a threat here to close out these last 2 points of damage. It also will have to contend with a Blast Zone that can get pumped up to at least 4. So unless something is producing multiple threats, that Blast Zone will check it. Another Trop.
He does not have any hasters in his deck.
Yeah, so now an Excavator bringing back a Dryad is actually... Oh, no, he exiled the Dryad, so that's not even a line. We were talking about that before as a potential play because those cards are relevant in his yard. But
I think we're going to see a Primeval Titan here.
Yep. So this is probably a game-ending threat here because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he is not quite at Field of Dead mana, right? Because Field of Dead wants 7 other lands with the same name.
7 total different names.
7 total different names. So he actually does if he gets his Field of the Dead plus something else. So if he gets Field of Dead and a fetch, that fetch will come in tapped, but it'll then potentially be an additional 2/2 for him. He's checking that right now, yeah. So he's probably going to get a Field of the Dead plus an additional land. I could see him just
getting Valakut.
Maybe
and a Field of the Dead.
If he has Valakut in this position, it's not going to do anything unless he finds another Dryad.
Right.
So
he gets Caracas and Field of the Dead. That's smart. I like
that.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's protecting himself against the natural 20/20.
Yep.
So he'll make a 2/2, which a 2/2 in this position actually would still be good enough against the Marrow Age, right? Because if he's making a 2/2 here, and then Alan, even at instant speed, makes a 20/20, then the race is still in Daniel's favor because he just needs 1 zombie to get through. And now he's got 3 lethal threats on the table. So I think this will be Alan's last draw step, and I don't really know what he has to get out of this with 2 chalices on the table.
Does he have anything?
I don't know, but we just hit a 3rd bingo.
Yeah, this is pretty nutty.
Yeah, what does he have? I don't think Alan can possibly win this game.
Yeah, I don't know if Alan is considering what his possible outs are. It's like a 20/20 is not going to do it. None of his walkers are going to do it. He's going to bring back the Punishing Fire, give Daniel a life. I don't know if that's going to be relevant enough. I mean, I guess he could draw Oko, but even if he draws Oko, that's still not going to be enough because there's too many lethal threats on the table.
Copies Field of the Dead.
Okay, so he's going to copy Field, but the Titan has Trample, so...
Right.
Unless he has ways to put multiple lands in play, but Exploration is cut off, Crop Rotation is cut off.
Didn't realize I was out of frame there. Sorry, everybody. I was leaning off frame.
chat, if you can see an out that we're missing here, I don't think Alan has one, but he's going into the tank here with that Field of the Dead copied by Thespian stage, so I think he's just going to consider his outs before he decides to pick them up, but I could be missing something. That Blast Zone isn't going to be able to deal with tokens.
No.
And it's not going to get big enough to deal with a Titan, so I don't see it. Alan's counting, though. He's doing something. He's seeing something we're not seeing.
Well,
yeah, if it is true. He could have copied the Blast Zone, and then the Blast Zone would have been able to sweep tokens and the chalices. Chalices. I don't know if he. It seems like he just didn't see the line, because that would have been an interesting line to take. I mean, he would still have to contend with a Titan, but it would free up a potential crop rotation that's been stuck in his hand. So, is he reaching for a token to make a 2/2, or is?
Not sure. That Thespian stage is a Blast Zone, though. Yeah.
Oh! So he must have caught that line right afterwards, then.
Yeah.
So what does he do here? He can, if he nukes the Thespian stage Blast Zone, then he still has to contend with the Titan, because he won't be able to make a 20/20. So if he nukes the Blast Zone, cuts or destroys the zombies mid combat after the Titan triggers happen, then he can Crop Rot. Does he have enough mana for all that? So he taps. Blast Zone is 3 tap, right? So he has 3 mana. Crop Rot. Does he have exactly lethal if he does that? If he nukes everything in the middle of combat, and then he Crop Rots to get another Thespian stage, that would leave him with, that would be 3 Blast Zone gone. Crop Rot, get another Thespian stage, 2 mana, and make a 20/20. Yeah, I think he might actually have it Exacxes. So he can make a 20/20 to block the Titan.
Showing Punishing Fire for some reason.
I guess Daniel's asking about it. I wonder if Daniel's seeing the line here of tokens and chalices getting swept in the middle of combat. I mean, he's got to swing. He's got to try and get him dead. But if he has exactly Crop Rot,
Caracas is on the board. Yes.
Man, this game is layers and layers deep.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I'm kind of glad I'm not playing in this one.
So he has Exacxes to make a 20/20 in block, but then he's checked by the Caracas. So does Alan have any outs to that, or is Alan just playing to him not bouncing the Merit Lage? Because he's got to fire off the Thespian stage. So maybe he could. No, because he can't. Does he have his own Field of the Dead? That wouldn't even do it, though, if he had a Crop Rot and do it, because the Titan has Trample. So
there is a port. I'm not sure what that means, but there is a port.
Yeah, but he's got to do something to check the Titan. So if he Blast Zones and sweeps all of the tokens and the chalices, then he needs something else to check the Titan attack.
Right.
Because every attacker is lethal. So a 20/20 with a Caracas on the table is not going to do it. He just passes the turn. Right, Portal check Caracas, but it'll cut him off having enough mana to make the 20/20 to stop the Titan from being a lethal threat, unless I'm missing something.
Port checks the Caracas. Okay.
So the port can check a Caracas to make it afterwards, but I don't think he has the requisite mana for that.
Okay.
So that life won't mean anything. Is Alan playing a Glacial Chasm? You can look at his list.
No.
Yeah, so I guess if he uses the Crop Rot, he would have to use it as a defensive measure as opposed to going for the win. So Crop Rot is an out, and it seems like it's his only out because he is. It has to be at instant speed. Well, that Wasteland is going to check that plan. At least it won't be. It's not a secure plan. It can buy him a turn, but. So if he crop rots for Mazavith, it can check a turn. So I think Daniel's checking to make sure that his Field of the Dead is going to trigger. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so those Wastelands come in. We have a trigger. We're going to get a bunch more zombies, but that's okay because Alan's going to be able to sweep all of them. Before combat, it looks like Alan's going to do something. I don't imagine it makes sense to try and do this before combat because he's going to leave some zombies on the table if he fires it off now. But he's gonna do that. So he's gonna get rid of everything.
Is he trying to make a Mirror Lage here?
No, he's cracking the blast zone.
Oh,
the
that was a blast
stage
zone.
is covered in blast zone.
Okay.
So he's gonna get rid of all the tokens and get rid of both the chalices. But he's leaving himself to open to an attack here, making more zombies unless he has a way to deal with the Titan before combat. And he's cracking a fetch here, going down to 1. So I guess he does have a line that he is considering that will stop all of that through a Caracas and through a Wasteland.
Yeah.
Well, double bolt will certainly do it if he has double bolt, which it looks like he does. So those chalices were sandbagging a bunch of cards in his hand. And 2 bolts will take down the Titan.
Wow. Titan never even got to attack, did it? No.
It attacked once and it got 2 lands and it put a couple zombies into play, but it never actually got into the red zone that one to get more. So all of the lines that Alan took were navigated pretty accurately here, based with how his hand lined up. So now a crop rot could just end the game by putting a 20/20 on the table, assuming he has a way to check that Caracas. And Daniel might just be running on empty now. He's got double Wasteland, so it's going to be hard for him to make a 20/20 for sure. But now he's got Loam, so we're in it for the long haul if he wants to try and play through that. Yeah, so he's going to get back that Thespian stage of Caracas and a fetch. That fetch is blank because he's at 1 life, but he has a bunch of ways to utilize cards in his hand between Dak and whatnot. Loam is just an inevitability line, but he does have to contend with any threats from Daniel is going to be lethal. But so he's going to play the Thespian stage. He's going to threaten the 20/20, and he's going to play a Sylvan Library. Okay, so if he can find an exploration, then we're in the market for him. He's going to be able to turbo through these wastelands. I mean, each wasteland is going to be a time walk, but it is a way that he can power through them. Yeah, that's an interesting line if he just wants to start copying the Caracas or copying Wastelands himself to go through it. So that Sylvan Library is just going to get decayed. I'm not sure how big of a deal that is. I mean, obviously selection is nice, but Daniel's going to draw his card. Not sure how many cards he has in hand.
I find myself just keep looking at the deck lists, see what they have left here. This has been a long game. A Dryad and Valakut kill is a possibility.
So he's going to play an Ancient Tomb and play get another zombie off of his Field of the Dead. We're also in a world where Alan could also copy Field of the Dead and start making his own blockers because he does have Loam. So he's going to have a steady stream of land drops.
Right.
I mean, he's only at 1, so it's not like he's going to be able to like crack his fetches and whatnot, but his fetch will make a 2/2. If he starts using the Thespian stage that way, I mean, it's all long haul stuff, but it's possible. But we're going to see an Uro escaped here for Daniel. That Cavern on Giant is relevant because that Uro is an Elder Giant.
It is.
So Giant Tribal for Daniel tonight.
A lot of Giants relevant tonight.
So he's going to draw a card. He's going to put another land into play if he has it, which will get him another zombie, and then it'll be another 3 lethal threats. So it doesn't look like he had the land to play off the Uro. Yeah, he's probably moving those lands over to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes here, because those are his action. All right, so now the lands are now moving up into the red zone. So he's got plenty of mana to play with. I'm just not sure what his plan is to just get this last point of damage through. Alan has put up quite the defense over this game.
This game looked like it was over a long time
ago. Yeah, it really did. We're going to see 4 mana tapped here. Daniel will go to 11. And he's going to play another Chalice on 2. So we'll see if Alan wants to respond to this with his Punishing Fire. He can take out a zombie. So this Chalice on 2 is going to be quite good because it's going to cut the Loam, and the Loam being able to find his ways to battle through all of those wastelands in that Caracas. But he does have access to be able to kill this zombie. See what he's doing with that Thespian stage. He's copying something. I think he's going to have to end up copying Field of the Dead. He could also copy Blast Zone again, yeah, and just run the trick back.
Blast Zone it is.
Yeah, so Blast Zone, Thespian Stage, Recursion. Yeah, I mean, the window to waste is now, if Daniel wants to take it, which I think he's got to. I mean, he's got resources to spare. But letting Alan untap is going to let him destroy a couple of permanents.
Yep.
Yeah, Daniel's going to fire it off. So he's going to cut that. So this might be enough. This might be...
Yep, that stage is down.
Multiple threats taking it down, cuts mana. He's got both a Wasteland and a Caracas checking a Merit Lage. I guess the outs are if Daniel just does a huge mistake after paying for Tabernacle all game, just flubbing the one turn where it matters. That is possible.
Oh, no, please don't have it end like that.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a pretty bad ending to a game that's otherwise been pretty well navigated by both players. Outside of the Dryad that didn't really do much.
Yeah. Thespian stage. How does Alan do anything here?
Yeah, so once again, the last time I was like, I don't think Alan has any outs. He had all of them, so.
Yeah, that's true.
And it looks like that'll be enough. Okay, so the big epic game one will go to Daniel here. Because I mean, he had the dream start, right? Turn 1 Chalice, turn 2 Dryad, play land. It slowed down from there because he was missing some land drops, but
how much does being on the player draw affect the lands deck? It's a little different than a depths-based deck.
I think it affects it pretty significantly because if you're playing, if Daniel's keeping in his chalices, then being able to on the play go turn 1 exploration, that's immensely valuable if your opponent is trying to chalice, because then they're going to have to try and spend their abrupt decay, keeping you from accelerating. And both decks are interested in accelerating, right? Like we want a fast Merit Lage, we want a fast Titan. One side's playing 4 exploration, the other side's playing 4 Dryad. So both decks have a similar backbone. They just go about it different ways. But I think Alan is definitely the faster of the two decks in terms of being able to put a lethal threat on the table because he has crop rotations.
Fetching a Taiga here. That's averting Catacombs on the right side of your screen.
So we have a port, and he's going to jam a Sylvan Library on turn 2, and then pass it back.
Right, chat. Shifted Ceratops all over the place next week. I started it.
We got a Cavern. It's likely naming Giant, and it is.
Yep.
He's going to crack this, and if we're seeing a 2-drop play, it's probably Chalice, I would imagine. It could be a threat.
Could be. What threats does he have on 2? Oh, it also could be Abrupt Decay. Oh, no, he can't cast Abrupt Decay. Never mind.
If he wants to cast a Scooze, he could do that.
Yep.
He would have been able to cast Once Upon a Time for free. It's possible that he is fetching beforehand to do that, if he's interested in that. But we're going to see 2 mana here for a Chalice on 1.
Chat pointing out that the port has different art than the playmat. Never noticed that before, but yes. Alan always has sweet, rare versions of every card.
Yeah, so if these are his backup ports, they're also foil. So even his backups are tricked out. I mean, he does have an FBB Taiga on the table right now.
Alan's decks are always beautiful. Well, this is going to be another long game. What do you think?
Yeah, probably. The Chalice signifies that it's going to be a long game, but it is also possible that we could just see a Dak Fade in here start to just pull away with enough advantage that we can trade enough resources. I mean, Alan's going to be way more set up in game 2 to deal with the Chalice, right? He's got Grudge. Yeah. He's got Force of Vigor, so his deck is just going to be way more dense to get rid of that Chalice. He's not going to have to do a bunch of shenanigans like he did last game by copying Blast Zone over and over again. So
this card's Punishing Fires ×2. Maybe see an Uro here. If you like pre-modern, make sure you vote in our weekly poll on Twitter, 90SMTG on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter and vote in the poll, and we could be playing pre-modern next Monday night. It's up to you to decide. Valakut and then Scavenging Ooze. Do you play pre-modern at all, Phil?
I have. I've obviously talked with Zach and Nate a bunch about pre-modern, so right. I have somewhat of an awareness of decks that are available in the format. Excuse me, but I haven't really gotten a chance to play all that much. But the format looks interesting. I mean, the people who play it all tell me that it's a really, really fun format. So, I mean, I feel like for somebody who hasn't gotten to play much of the format, I know more about it because of the Eternal Turtles podcast.
Yeah.
So we got a Scooz on Daniel's side. We got a Grove that came into play tapped, so let's see what he's casting. He's going to get a Punishing Fires back to his hand. And I imagine he's just going to fire that off before that Scooz gets the chance to untap, and that's what he's going to do. Yeah. So that Scooz is down. It's not going to be able to check those Punishing Fires. So Punishing Fire Engine is online. That is going to be keeping Daniel's threats in check. And between all of this card selection, there's enough going on that I imagine even the big 4-drops that... or not 4-drops. The big creatures with 4 butts are going to be in locked out for Daniel here. So
yeah.
We also have like the Dak double Punishing Fire engine going, so he's just drawing a bunch of cards every turn. This one might be a little bit faster than the last game.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I mean the last game was an absolute marathon, but it seems like there's all things are coming up roses right now for Alan. It seems like he's up on cards, he's up on resources. I mean Daniel's mana isn't even all that great here, right? Like he's got Uro mana, but now with this Ancient Tomb hitting the table, he still doesn't have double green. So things like Corsair are cut from him right now. He doesn't have access to that. A Dryad could clean that up, but we're seeing 4 mana here. That's true. He can't even decay because he doesn't have access to both a black and a green mana. So he's just going to Chalice on 2. So he's flush with Chalices. That Chalice on 2 is going to be something that is going to limit Alan a little bit more. It's going to cut Ancient Grudge from being an out to them. He's going to need a Force of Vigor if he wants to get rid of them. But man, if he finds a Force of Vigor, and he's looking at a lot of cards, right? So he's got a couple of Force of Vigor. He could just clear the top of his deck right now, loot again. I mean, just dig 3 to 5 cards deep every turn to try and find a Force. He's under no pressure. I mean, these Chalices may slow him down a little bit, but I think for the most part, this is it. So he's going to put 2 back. He's not going to draw any extra cards here. He can also, if he wants to just spend all of his mana, he could be just recurring. I mean, not all of his mana, but a bunch of his red sources. He could recur, so P-Fires to also just continue to go up a bunch of cards and eventually bury Daniel under just raw card advantage. It's rare that happens these days in Legacy, I feel like, but we see a Wasteland. That Wasteland is going to set Daniel back even further. I imagine he's going to have to go after the Bayou and just cut both black and red mana, or black and green mana.
I like that. I can tell he's thinking about which card. Yeah,
I mean, he can go after he can go after the Tomb if he wanted to strip a couple lands, but that port that he has can check the Tomb if he wants to. And I think just cutting off decays from being able to be played in response to a port is valuable. So Dak trigger on this deck, he's actually not going to put the Punishing Fires back in his hand. He's just going to loot here.
Dak is at
he could
6. What's the ultimate? 7?
I think the ultimate is -7. Could be wrong. So he dumps a Loam, so that's big game if he can get those Chalices off the table.
Yep.
So Dak's minus is 6. 6 -6. Stealing Chalices, though, if you somehow could target them, not really going to do much. So that Tomb is going to get ported. Daniel's going to draw for turn. He's on pretty low resources. He's just going to need some natural draw steps to give him some lands here. I mean, he's not quite locked under Loam Wasteland because that Chalice is checking that Loam, but
D-Goat7. D-Goat, thanks for the subscribe. Appreciate it.
Not quite up to where it's looking like Daniel can win this game. I mean, anything's possible with these decks, right? But Alan puts 2 more Punishing Fires back in his hand, looks at the top 3 off Sylvan Library. I mean, there's just so many so many pieces of cardboard in all these different zones that are just going all over the place for Alan that, you know, a Valakut, an Ancient Tomb, and a Cavern of Souls on Daniel's side just making him look really, really anemic.
All right, here's the ultimate. That's probably game.
So he does gain that. So now any of his punishing fires are now going to steal any of Daniel's threats. So now I don't know what out Daniel has. I mean, even if the punishing fires get countered, the emblem will still trigger because the target is still there. So the punishing fires can actually steal all of the threats through the chalice.
Daniel could find Wasteland, yeah.
Wasteland to cut the grove. But that's asking a lot, right? Like, I mean, his threats are already going to need some amount of green. I mean, I think we're close to a lock here with that DAC emblem on the table. I mean, Alan's still got a full grip.
Yep. It's only spells, right? Not abilities.
Scrub boy. Better be on the lookout for the ants.
Force of Vigor.
Yeah. So now now with the Force of Vigor, he's mentioning the emblem, targeting the things, but they're still going to die even when they change hands. So he'll gain control of them on resolution, but then they'll still get destroyed. So no functional relevance of the emblem there. But now this Loam is going to get busy. And there's a Fields of the Dead. So now we actually have our threats online.
Ancient Grudge in the yard.
I mean, I think Daniel is playing this one out, but I think he could call this one and we could move on to a game 3 here because this one looks just about wrapped up to me. Yeah. There isn't really, unlike Alan's deck, which, you know, he can just like crop rot into a win out of nowhere. Daniel's deck isn't really set up for like those kinds of get you blowouts. You know, he's really casting his stuff at sorcery speed, and when you're beat, you'll know it. But
yep. All right.
Yeah.
That's a scoop. Going to game 3. 1 GG enchantment. Exile a card from your hand. Return target card from a graveyard to your hand if it shares a card type with the card exiled this way. What?
So it's interesting. It turns every card into your hand to regrow for the same type because it costs 2. So I imagine the exploitation is how you can continue to fill your yard and then use something to continue to fill your yard, and then I guess you can do something like mill yourself. All right, I'm interested. This is catching my fancy here. We'll take a look at Holistic Wisdom.
What set is that from? I'm going to find out. I don't even remember ever hearing of this card.
So we're seeing a good start here from Alan.
Odyssey.
Just a quick check-in on the game. We got Alan finally getting an exploration start. His first time all night having an exploration start. So he goes exploration in the grove, and then we got Daniel who's fetching and finding a trop. Yeah, Holistic Wisdom. For 5 mana and a card is when you start regrowing. So there's got to be a way to abuse that in terms of card advantage. So I'm thinking things like... Yeah, I imagine that the way to go about it is you have to mill yourself and put yourself up cards. And so you can get cards that continuously put yourself up cards so you can continuously be pitching cards. Yeah, Mist Hollow Griffin seems like it would be good with Holistic Wisdom. So maybe Leon is the person who we should be talking about getting that card into play. I mean, he's already a master of 3 mana green enchantments. So we got a turn 2 Chalice here from Daniel off of what looks like good, decent mana this game.
Yep. Yeah, Leon, if you're still here, if you haven't enjoyed too many beers from the bingo card tonight, you have a card that we need you to brew with.
If anything, we need to see you do a bunch of beers so you're interested in playing Holistic Wisdom. But back to the game. We got a big 2020 coming in main phase here to play around the Wasteland. And so now it seems like it could just be Caracas or bust on Daniel. So after 2 really long, grindy games, I mean, one was a little bit more lopsided. We might see a fast one here with this Merit Lage on turn 2.
What can Daniel?
Or maybe
do?
it was a turn 3. So we have an Uro that's going to put him over 20 life, so that'll let him sustain a hit.
That's pretty good.
But obviously, we're going to see Phil's called shot from way back when Alan just pulls a fling up out of nowhere.
Just completely cheats and brings it in.
So we're seeing a lot more like card velocity this game. Like this game looks pretty different from the last two. I mean, there was a Chalice on 2, but an Uro coming in, putting a Bog into play, Exile in the Yard, but like a really fast 20/20. It's going to put him to 2. And a Punishing Fire could just close this up if he's got it, or a Bolt if you left them in. Or I'm sorry, a Bolt can't because it's checked by the Chalice. So a Punishing Fire would have to do it.
Yep.
He's just going to go after a Wasteland on the Trop, so he's going to cut blue off and make it so that a 6/6 can't come back into play. Not that it would be relevant in the face of a 20/20. No P-Fire for Alan, so he's got to ship the turn over to Daniel to potentially find this Caracas off the top.
Uh-oh.
He's just slow rolling himself.
Felipe Vasquez, thanks for the follow.
Well, we're not seeing any major action immediately. This might settle it for Daniel, and that'll do it.
Looks like that's
Looks
it.
like Alan Yee. We'll see him back on Wednesday. We'll see what he decides if he wants to run back this sweet rug lands list. But,
Alan Yee.